What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fitness, Food, and Freedom Podcast. This has been kind of a long time, um, kind of feeling a little bit rusty in the podcast game. And thank you for still following the podcast. If you are, it has been since March 2024 since I've released an episode and kind of getting back on schedule of things now. Really don't need to go into everything with it. It's just a matter of priorities shifting, right? We got three kids, a 5-year-old boy and twin 2-year-old boys. And then I also work a full-time job and then also help on our family farm as kind of a second job as a farmhand as well. So sometimes doing these side businesses and side projects takes a back seat, and it's really pretty much that simple. Priorities shifting a little bit around, but kind of back to it. Felt inspired this year, a lot of the year actually, to kind of get back into things with the podcast. And wanted to kind of switch things up on how I did it, I guess. One big change is that the podcast is now on YouTube consistently. I did put them up before. On YouTube, it was just kind of a pain to record them because it was basically using an old DSLR camera set up in my office. And my office is right under where our babies would take a nap. So it would be kind of like this dicey situation of like, do I want to do it while they're awake or asleep? And if they're actually asleep, I'd kind of be like, need to be quiet or wake them up or not be able to do things as I really wanted to do them. You can see if you're watching the video on the Stoltz Fit YouTube channel, studio, quote unquote, is a little bit different, right? It's actually the same room as I recorded before. Just basically at my desk, doing this more like a live stream type setup. So I always do these podcasts as kind of off the cuff, no scripting, no editing really of the words I say and the points I make. Just giving you guys a little bit of a visual. Today we're going pretty basic with my points for today written out here on the screen. And in the future, maybe we'll do some screen sharing and visual aids and things like that to kind of, make a accompaniment to the podcast and kind of help you guys learn things a little bit better that I want to go over. But revised the studio, felt inspired to resume the podcast a little bit, and here we go, back to it. Kind of committing to this. We're going to do Monday and Thursday episodes, so 2 times a week. Used to do 3 way back in the day, switched to 1 longer one, back to 2, so kind of finding that middle ground, the sweet spot, if you will. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing from now on. I'm sure it'll take a little bit to get the podcast rolling again like it was back in 2021, 22, 23. Got a good amount of listeners and subscribers and everything to the videos and to the audio podcast. Resuming that, picking up steam, and building some habits and momentum here with the show. So the goal still, help you guys out with your fitness questions and needs. I'm kind of having this shift in my own training and nutrition philosophies. And a big part of that is due to age. I'm not saying I'm old. I'm kind of low key in my prime right now, 32 years old. But anyways, when you're 30, 31, 32, don't know if I'm talking to people older than me, same age or younger. But for those younger, keep in mind, when you hit 31, 32, I definitely started to notice recovery change. And I really started to notice a realization of how serious I need to take health and fitness to get the results that I need for my own situation. I'll get into that later in this episode in one of these points about full body workouts today. Recovery was the big thing I noticed, and fatigue affecting life and training was a big change, kind of since, being a super young adult, 22 years old to maybe, 28, I guess that like mid-20s range. You can kind of do anything. I mean, life really isn't that stressful unless, you had kids pretty young or are a single parent or something like that. For most people, it's really not that crazy. You're kind of in, at least for me, like in your first job, first living situation, like there's stress to all that a little bit, but not, not really compared to the life stress and fatigue buildup that comes when you're a little bit older and have jobs, marriage, kids, finances. I mean, all this kind of stuff takes a toll, right? That was one of the biggest realizations and shifts, which I could do a whole episode on in my 30s, was that life fatigue adds to training fatigue. It's not different things, right? It's not like you can come up with a perfect workout plan that you can technically recover from and you have your life stress in a separate bucket. That's not how it is. It's a giant stress bucket, right? You have one bucket, and if you are full of life stress, don't add as much training stress because you won't be able to recover from it. If you really aren't having that much life stress, it's half full to quarter full, feel free to add some more training on top of that and you'll be just fine. Right? So that's kind of a big shift and realization that I've gotten to, which is kind of one of the reasons why I stopped doing the podcast. There was the technical aspects of the busyness, the priorities, the location of the podcast recording. That all had a factor, but another factor was a shift in my message. And I think that my initial message and coaching style for the people I worked with was coming from a place of me being 25, right? Or me being 27 or whatever it was. The stuff I was telling people to do, I started to realize, although I was open to, different approaches, it wasn't as realistic for a busy person and it wasn't realistic for an aging person. And I think the last several years have really taught me a lot about that. I used to kind of be a little bit hard-headed in the aspect of people saying I was too young to coach them or too young to give them advice on certain things. In some ways, I still feel that way. I mean, I'm 32, still in shape. I mean, people when I was 22 said, just wait till you're 32. Definitely a little bit of that going on, but I do get it, right? As you get a little bit older, things do change. And I'm sure when I'm 40, I'll have another shift and I'll have to kind of rethink things a little bit more even, right? I've started to really respect the idea that people's lifestyles and people's genetics and people's age, gender, these things play a massive role in what you can do and what you feel good doing and what gets you results. Everyone has 24 hours in the day, I think is terrible advice as far as fitness is concerned, right? What I can do at 19 years old is not the same what I could do at 25 or 32. It's not that I'm weaker, worse shape. I'm actually probably stronger and in better shape now than I was then. It's just a shift of how you choose to fill that stress, life, fatigue bucket, right? So let's get into today's main topic, which is going to be about full body workouts. I could kind of talk about this shift of 20s versus 30s training and nutrition. We'll get into the nutrition stuff another time. Today we're going to kind of gently touch on the training side of things. I'm going to talk about why full body workouts are best. And this is best for you, my audience, because I know based on Spotify and Apple statistics who the audience is, right? And I know who I am. And I think that it's important to realize who you are and kind of work backwards from that, or who you're talking to and work backwards from that. If I was talking to pro bodybuilders, pro powerlifters, a pro football player, I would not say full body workouts are the best for everybody. That would just kind of be foolish, I guess. But I know who I am and I know who my audience is. And that's actually one of my points in here that I'll kind of get to. So I want to talk about today full body training. This is kind of one of the main approaches that's been a little bit different for me moving forward. And right now I'm kind of on this modified arm specialization program, but basically full body with a couple of arm days. So we'll kind of talk about why full body workouts, I think, kind of hands down are the best for everybody. And This is everyone who's just kind of your average person. Let's roll through the list. I made this list here that's on the screen. And if you're listening to the podcast instead of watching it on YouTube, head on over to Stoltz Fit YouTube channel and subscribe. But also, I'll list out each thing on the list. So if you're watching, don't read ahead. Number one is rest days. This is something, I feel like I'm talking like I'm 60 years old. I know I'm 32, but you do start to realize when that stress bucket of life starts to kind of just get more full with general things that aren't related to training. When that starts adding up, rest days are just so awesome. Like you feel so good after a rest day and then go back to the gym compared to before when a rest day was kind of like a pain. And actually, even not that long ago, maybe like a year or two ago, I actually sometimes felt like a rest day made my following session a little bit worse because I was more sedentary and I was a little bit more like stiff coming into the gym. And I actually think that's a little bit more to do with programming and being sedentary in general compared to the actual rest day. So rest days are super useful. It's the best way to get ahead in recovery, right? If you want to really fix your volume issues in your training, like think you might be overtraining, you might be a junkie of training a little bit, right? You're overdoing it a lot. You're really sore all the time. You're struggling to progress. You are, just kind of going, just nose on the grindstone type of thing. Rest days are the best way to get ahead of that, right? It's like, and that's why full body workouts are awesome because typically you do a full body workout, rest a whole day, do another full body workout, rest a whole day, so on and so forth. You can either structure it full body every other day, which would be, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, and then it kind of repeats. Or it could be a structured week, which I kind of prefer more. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, full body. Like that's pretty basic. You could even do, if you were really pressed for time, something like Monday, Thursday, full body, 2 times a week, and you would still be just fine. Even an in-season athlete, I could put in a 1 time a week full body workout, although that wouldn't be as optimal for any type of progress at all. So usually you'll have rest days built in. And with other training splits, rest days really get minimized, right? You're going from, let's say you do 3 full body workouts a week to keep it simple. That's 4 rest days. In something like a upper lower training split, now you're down to 3 rest days. If it's a push pull legs off, now that's 1 rest day. If it's a body part split, like a bodybuilding routine, sometimes it's no rest days, right? So the more training days you have, the less rest days you have. I mean, that should be obvious, right? So the rest days are a really, really good way to make sure you're recovered. And the cool thing about full body workouts is that you do your entire body in the workout. Then you have a whole rest day where you do no weight training. So you can recover your whole body together. You don't have to worry about, I'm going into, let's use an example. So for example, back in a couple years ago, I did a split where I had 2 leg days. One was quad focus, one was glute and ham focus. And sometimes the quad day would make my quads so sore or tender because I tend to get sore in my quads easily. I couldn't put the pad down on my leg curl machine tight enough to do leg curls on my hamstring workout. It's overlapping fatigue and soreness, or even, you are trying to squat a couple days after you do shoulder presses and your shoulders are stiff and you can't get your hands behind on the bar, right? These kind of things are overlapping. When you have whole rest days, you're covering every body part together and it really takes care of that whole issue completely. Number 2 is, this is kind of specific to me. I put strongman and conditioning, but this really could be any kind of tool that you have trouble working into your routine. So this means with a full body workout, you have off days you can dedicate to other things, which I'll get into a little bit later, but you're able to really work in things that take the full body, right? You're able to work in, like, for example, a strongman movement could be like a, say it's like an Atlas stone load where you pick up a big rock off the ground and put it onto a platform. Something I dabble with sometimes. where do you put that in your routine, right? You put it on a back day, but you have a leg day coming up next. You put it on, a leg day, but then you already trained legs that day and you're kind of like fatigued. Like it's pretty hard to work that stuff in. And conditioning is the same way, right? Like where do you work in, say it's assault bike sprints or something, or hill sprints? You put that on a leg day. I mean, if you watch any fitness content out there, it's like the most common question has got to be like splits. And then the next one has got to be like, where do I structure cardio in here? Super common concern for people because it just doesn't fit with a split routine. With full body workouts, you just put it with the workout because it's your whole body. It doesn't matter what body parts you hit. And you could put it even on the off day if it's something lighter, like conditioning or mobility or something. And that goes into point number 3 for full body workouts is you're able to do quote unquote weird lifts that people skip or, kind of talk about fatigue with too much in the science-based training world. Things like my examples here on the screen, deadlifts. Where do you put deadlifts, right? Is that a back exercise, leg exercise? If you put it on back day, a lot of times you're working your hamstrings and glutes too. I mean, it's whole body really. You put it on your leg day, you're using your back and fatiguing that. It's really hard to structure deadlifts. Rings, like if you're doing gymnastic work or ring dips and stuff like that, like you're challenging a stability component. That is, if it's on a tricep day, for example, or let's say it's an arm day, I've always had trouble like putting dips in a split routine because where you put dips, it's chest, little shoulders, definitely triceps. Like you put it on your arm day, but then it's using chest, or how do you deal with that overlap? Not an issue with full body workouts. Part of the body, you just put them in there. Upper lower is good for this too. You can just kind of throw it in if it's upper body or lower body. Pullovers, you got unique exercise where you're putting something overhead, pulling it down, usually like a dumbbell, laying across a bench. People argue constantly. Does it work the pecs, the triceps, the lats? What is the primary mover? It doesn't even matter. It's a good exercise, good to progress on, and good to get stronger on. Just include it in your full body workout. Kettlebell movements, complexes, things where you're doing a clean and a press, a snatch, a squat and a press, right? Like different things like that. Olympic lifts are the same way. These are full body movements that don't belong on a dedicated muscle group session. You can't just say this is a leg exercise, a shoulder exercise. Conditioning, sometimes it does take strength to do it. Full body workouts solve this problem. Come up with any lift that isn't an isolation lift, and it's a whole lot easier to put on a full body day. So number 4, this is something I talked about in passing a little bit ago, and that is I'm not a pro. And this was kind of one of these realizations. Maybe it was some kind of midlife crisis of sorts in fitness anyways, where you kind of realize like, why are you training so hard to get another 5 pounds on your squat? Or why are you trying to isolate everything to like grow your biceps an extra half an inch, right? If you're not a pro, you don't have to maximize and optimize, right? Like you might be slightly better off, doing a certain variation of an exercise or a certain split or a certain amount of volume or something to like build the maximum amount of muscle possible. But kind of this is going to be the theme, honestly, guys. I mean, like I'm going to talk about this over and over again in this show moving forward here. Honestly, why are you maximizing everything if you're not a pro in fitness, right? Like I would say use something that is time efficient, effective, and makes you feel good and look good, right? Like you want to get the results, but you don't have to optimize and maximize. There's no point. In nutrition too. I mean, like be healthy, live a long life, and do things in a healthy and a way that will bring results. But you don't have to stress and fret about every little detail because you're not going to be a pro bodybuilder and you're not going to be a pro powerlifter and you're not going to be a magazine model cover. Sorry. Unless you are, congrats. But most of us aren't. And the reality is we're doing this to look better, and we're doing this to feel better, and we're doing this to brag to ourselves and others that we're pretty strong, right? I mean, like, what's the real root point of this? There might be like an underlying root thing that, is, I mean, that's great. But when it comes down to it, you're just doing it to move good, look good, feel good. And you can get that done with a full body workout, and you get all these other benefits. So a lot of times the stress about splits and exercise selection and volume, it's all stuff that does not apply to any of us. Next point, you can prioritize cardio and mobility so much better. Try working a lot of cardio days into a body part split. It is hard. Even multiple higher volume, lower body days in a week make it pretty tough to do cardio, which I can get into a little bit later. But basically, this just means you have more days to fill in with other stuff. So more off days means more opportunities for other movement that's not just lifting weights in the gym, which I'm all for lifting weights in the gym, obviously, but there's so many more other things that are beneficial, right? And arguably for health, cardio is a little bit more beneficial, I'd say. And people don't prioritize it enough, I think. And I'll get into a lot of that this year too, because cardio is kind of a newfound love of mine in certain ways. So we can talk about that moving forward. But mobility too. I talk about mobility on this show a lot in the past too, and how you should dedicate time to it. Are you actually going to dedicate time to it if you don't, have a whole day where you say this is like mobility day? I mean, for me, I always say I'm going to do 10 minutes here and there and 30 minutes here and there. And it's pretty easy to skip. It's pretty easy to just sit on the couch when you're tired. But if you are off from the gym anyways, and you have that time blocked, do your cardio then, do your mobility then. It's way easier to include on these off days than trying to fit it in as a separate time of day when you already weight train and take up that time. The next one is less equipment is needed, which could also be rephrased as you're using bang for your buck movements. Me as a home gym owner, right out this door behind me, if you're watching the video, there's my home gym. And I am like so guilty of going down this home gym trap of just buying equipment over and over again. And, hopefully not, but going into crippling debt on home gym equipment, kind of the joke we have around here. But the truth is, if you are picking effective exercises that are typically going to be like compound movements, you don't need a ton of equipment. You need weights, you need dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells, whatever. A couple machines help a lot if you have certain movements that feel better than others. And then I like a cable stack, like a cable setup has a ton of movements with it, but you're able to set up a home gym a lot easier. Or if you're at the gym, you don't have to be like at the most decked out gym possible. It's fun. It's cool. I would definitely use a gym like that if I had it, but you don't have to do it because you can, hit a lot of your muscle groups with the big movements that are hard to work in with other splits. Like my examples earlier, deadlifts, dips, pullovers, like things like that. You can do those things with not a lot of equipment that's specialized, and that's how it fits into full body really well. Next, you're not sore and you're not run down all the time. This is something that started catching up to me a little bit when I added cardio in a lot more, is multiple days of running, multiple days of cycling per week. It just fills that fatigue bucket again, right? It's not that you get really sore. It's just that your legs feel a little bit heavy. Your legs feel a little bit like noodly sometimes, especially if you're not fueling quite properly during those sessions. And you just feel in general beat down. Like you wake up in the morning feeling like you got beat up, by a bully, or you got hit by a bus or something. That's not great. Not a great feeling. It's not a way someone who's not a pro should live their life, right? Like you're not professional in this. You're not making money from this. So why are you training in a way that makes you feel terrible? Is kind of the question I had for myself. So not sore, not run down. Just, because you are training your full body multiple times per week, it's more frequency. You're training, for example, your legs 3 times per week. So you don't have to do, you could do one set 3 times per week and you would be growing muscle. You could do 2 sets, you could do 3. I definitely wouldn't do more than 3 if you're training 3 times a week personally. But multiple hits of that same muscle group or exercise, you know, spread out through the week. You're building your same volume into more sessions, not getting sore in any one of those. Kind of a more efficient way to do it, so you're not just beat up all the time. And overall, each body part's volume is a little bit lower because you're training everything like that. So it is a little bit easier to work in stuff like cardio, like I said, conditioning, and not just add a ton of fatigue that makes you really sore and feeling terrible. If a client came to me and said they're very sore all the time, they feel awful, they are having trouble sleeping, they can't get on the floor with their kids and play because they're, all stiff, they can't sit on the toilet, like, we would have a discussion about maybe switching to something like this. And I've talked about this a lot, so we don't need to dive too deep into this one, but volume and intensity management, you hear a lot of talk in fitness from coaches about proper volume, what you can recover from, how many sets per week, how many sets per exercise. When you have this many rest days in something like full body every other day or Monday, Wednesday, Friday full body, you don't have to worry about volume and intensity unless you're just being silly with the number of sets and amount of time you're at the gym. If you're hitting every body part in general and you're in the gym for, say, 80 minutes or less, you don't have to worry. You're not going to be able to do enough volume to make it an issue. Intensity management is basically like, how hard do I push? And with full body, because you only have to do 1 or 2 sets, you can just push, and you know that you can just go for it. It takes care of all these issues, so it's really not something to worry about. There's not a lot of but what if type of questions because the rest days solve all of it. And the frequency allows for such low volume per muscle group in those sessions that it never becomes an issue on if you can recover till the next one. And the next thing is asynchronous, especially when it's every other day, meaning let's say you're doing a body part split routine, like a bodybuilding chest, back, shoulders, arms type of split. If you do that and you skip back day, for example, you wouldn't hit that again for 7-8 days, right? And that would be an issue. You're not having any other opportunity to hit that unless you're going to skip another day in your session or throw off your entire week. Even something like an upper lower split, it's like you miss one of the days, you have to wait quite a while until you get it again, right? So with a full body workout though, if I go to the gym Monday, I have Tuesday off. Wednesday, I was planning to train, but I missed it. You still only had 2 rest days in between if you train on Thursday. You can miss workouts and still get 2 times a week per body part training for everything really easily. Some weeks you might only train twice. Some weeks you might train 4 times. You can kind of move things around as your schedule dictates, which is really helpful when you are a little bit more busy and things pop up, and things do pop up. And then the last one is just kind of what it teaches you. And it's what it's been teaching me. I'll say I'm like 85% bought into this. I still am like trying to isolate some things. But it really teaches minimum effective dose, which is just a huge concept that people don't understand. It's like, what is the least that I can do to get the change? And that's what you should be doing. It's tempting as someone who loves the stuff to like, what is the most I can do and recover from and not get too sore? But the truth is that is going to drive you into the ground eventually. What you should be doing is thinking about, what can I do and still make progress from without having to overdo it? Because that fills up your bucket less, right? If you have this fatigue stress bucket and you fill it only a third of the way with training stress, that means you're going to be functioning top tier because you have all that recovery ability, right? Like, you can use your life stress a lot better. You can add cardio, you can add mobility, you can add conditioning tools, you can add yoga, stretching, like whatever you like doing. It's much easier to fill in when you are using minimum effective dose concepts in your training. Not minimalist training where you're not doing many exercises. My full body workout, so you would usually have somewhere like 6 to 12 movements, probably usually around 10. but it's not a minimalist training. It's doing less for the same results, or even 80% of the results, because what does it matter? We're not pros anyways. I don't want to sound too like existential crisis here. It's just something to consider. And hopefully, you guys got you thinking a little bit. Full body workouts is something I am dabbling with. I'll update you guys on that experiment as we go. And the nutrition side of things has taken a small shift as well, which I'll get into in future episodes. Again, everybody, Monday, Thursday episodes. This one right here, because I have to edit this and upload it to Spotify and stuff, may come out on Friday morning. But welcome back to the show. This regularly occurring podcast that you should definitely subscribe to and follow on Spotify and Apple, and subscribe to on the Stoltz Fit YouTube channel. All the cool stuff. Consider full body workouts. And if you need help setting something up, just comment, reach out to me, whatever you need to do, and I'll help you out. No issue at all. Thank you guys for joining me for another episode, and I'll see you guys on Monday.